We are live.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to our usual Wednesday helping of all things recovery. This is Kennedy Street. If you don't know what Kennedy Street is, a brief reminder, thanks to the National Lottery, we are now a proper charity. And what we do is we help people who are thinking about getting recovery, people who are in recovery, businesses that are thinking about maybe helping their employees. Everyone here, there's no experts or medical experts, so to speak, but everybody here has been in addiction in one way or another, and are in the process of recovering. So anything that you say to us, we probably know, we've heard it all before, and you're speaking to people that have come through the other side. And to get hold of us, you can get hold of us at Claire at kennedystreetcic.co.uk, and because of the National Lottery we have a dedicated line now, and that number is 01273 758 561. Now, today we're going to talk to a gentleman called Steve. He won't be on screen because there's an anonymity we have to keep. And his story is very interesting. It's all about family addiction. So please have a listen. And if any of this, what Steve says, or indeed any of us say, rings a bell with you, or you recognize or identify with what we're saying, please just get in touch for an informal chat, and hopefully we can put you back on the road to recovery.
And what I would say before Steve starts is, please feel free to use this opportunity to ask questions. I myself consider myself to be in family recovery. Kev's in family recovery. We are both practice lots of principles of family recovery. Like I say, Steve, he's in family recovery. He's in active family recovery himself. So it's a perfect opportunity to, if you've got any questions, we might not be able to answer them, but we'll do our best. And there's also other people will be watching and listening who are also in recovery themselves. So as you comment, people might offer support as you go along. So I would say I would encourage you to ask questions. And if you don't want to add questions publicly, you can always direct message me. I will always get back to you. So on that note, I'm going to hand over to the lovely Steve, who will introduce himself and then just share a little bit of his experience, strength and hope. So over to you, Steve.
Thank you, Claire. Lovely to see you both. So my name's Steve, and I've been in recovery now for just over 7 years from the family illness. My family illness, for me, it was fear, a lot of fear. A lot of controlisms, trying to control lots of situations which were going on, which I actually couldn't control. Sort of like 7 years ago, I was actually introduced to Claire, luckily enough, through my son's recovery. Claire introduced me or asked me or suggested actually that I go to Al-Anon meetings, but I didn't understand why I needed to go to a meeting, because I didn't feel that I had any types of illnesses. I didn't think I was the one who needed any recovery 7 years ago. But once I started going to meetings, I started to understand the impact of my actions, what they were causing to my family, and even to the situation with my son's situation. I was making the situations a lot worse than what they could have been. But yeah, so that's sort of where I was at the beginning of Al-Anon. So the process for me has been, I'm still in Al-Anon now, I'm in a much healthier place.
Amazing. And I know you, Steve, and I've met your family, and I know how hard you've worked. Can you tell us a little bit more about sort of the process that you went through to start engaging in those meetings, because I mean, I know it's slightly different now because we're online, but maybe you can just give a little bit of an overview as to sort of how you started.
Can we just say, though, before we start, can we explain what Al-Anon is for anyone who actually doesn't know what that Al-Anon means?
Yeah, so Al-Anon is a family help group for people struggling with alcoholism, mainly anyway. So if you're in a position where you think your husband, your wife, your son, your daughter is possibly drinking too much, you feel it's out of control situations, you can't deal with them, Al-Anon is a place where you can go. There's meetings every night of the week in the Brighton area, where you can go and meet like-minded people who will share their experience, strength and hope. So you get to learn a different way. You get to learn to be able to change your attitude to the alcoholic or the person who has the addictions and stuff. You learn lots. That's how I feel Al-Anon works for me. So going back to what Claire said about how to get to my first meeting, well, that's another a large stepping stone is actually turning up to your first meeting. I think lots of people in all different types of walks of life and addictions and stuff really find it very difficult to walk into that first meeting, and I found it really, really hard to walk in. So I think I was in a position where I was quite ill, and I was desperate for some answers, basically. The answers I wanted at that point were the answers I wanted was to cure my son's addictions, not to cure myself or to make myself a much healthier person. So that's what I was going to look for, or that's what I went for in the first place. But yeah, so it takes a bit of courage to get through the door, and then once you're through the door, you just find a lot of warmth, a lot of loving. The people are really nice. There's lots of help. There's lots of books, lots of literature, and yeah, someone's always there making a cup of tea and stuff. So it's very welcoming after you've actually got through the door. So really, it's a process that you don't really need to worry about. So yeah, so once my first few meetings, I weren't really getting it because of my own illnesses was control and fear, and it took me a long time to get rid of my control over my son's addictions and stuff. So I wasn't really listening to what was going on in the meetings, and it's important for me now. It's more about listening in the meeting, listening to what people say, listening to their experience, strength and hope, and taking all them really, really good bits of experience of what people have done with their lives and how they've turned them around and how they changed their attitude to the way they think. I came to realize I wasn't going to Al-Anon to cure my son. I was going to Al-Anon to actually cure myself of my own defaults, basically. And so yeah, so that's what sort of the process, little bits of Al-Anon's about.
And it is a process, isn't it? It's not. I think often what people think is that somebody's going to tell them what they need to do, and it's going to be just a straightforward exchange of information. So I know for me personally, when I started my adventure of family recovery, it took me 2 years and that's not an over an exaggeration, and I don't want to put people off, but it did take me about 2 years before I really understood what it was that I was doing there or what I was listening to. I wasn't really too sure, because it is almost like a new language, isn't it? And I think that's a fair point when Kev says, if you can explain, because when you've experienced recovery, you get used to the lingo. how long did it take you, Steve, before you feel that you started to fully? I know you said you thought you were going there to help your son, but how long before the penny dropped?
Yeah, I think it took me quite a while, like what you were saying. I think you don't really understand how deep denial can be, and it takes a long time, I think, in recovery, for myself anyway, to start to release the denial inside me and to try and understand another way. So for me, it took quite a while for the penny to drop. That my own actions were causing more problems than just the addict's actions. You know, the addict's actions were bad enough, but mine were tenfold in everything else. So what I added on top of them actions. So that took me a process of at least 18 months to 2 years to start to get my mindset to change and to become stronger, and to control the fear, because I was very fearful of situations. That was my biggest thing, was always around fear, if someone was going to get hurt, injured and stuff like that. But yeah, it was about 2 years.
Could you, going back to that first meeting, if there was somebody here now, hopefully maybe listening, who has a family member who is in the grip of addiction, could you talk me through the process of eventually going to that first meeting, and how that was for you, and did you get any relief at all at the first meeting, and explain the courage that you really need to grasp to get yourself through that door, to not help the addict but to help yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I think I knew I needed to do something. I felt deep down inside of me. I mean, my son was already in recovery; he was doing okay, but my fear in me was really, really strong, and I was quite ill at the time, not sleeping and stuff like that, worry. So I knew I had to do something, but I didn't know what to do. So when Claire suggested that Al-Anon may be good for me to go along, yeah, I did feel quite sort of anxious about going to that first meeting, because I didn't actually understand why I was going there. Yeah, so you're sort of walking into something you don't know why you're there. Oh, that's how I felt anyway. So it took the courage to get there. I mean, I nearly walked away as well. I nearly decided to, when I got to the car park, I nearly decided to turn around, basically. But luckily I found my wife, and my wife said, no, maybe you should carry on and not turn around. So yeah, so I was lucky to have a little bit of support when I needed it, just like little phone calls and stuff like that then, just to get me in. And then once I was in, and after the first part of the meeting, once people start talking or sharing, you start to understand that you're not the only one with that problem. That there's like-minded people in the room with you who are going through or gone through something maybe worse than what you think you're going through. So straight away, there was links to other people straight away, which did help in my first meeting. There was a lift or shift in the weight, even at the early stages of the first meetings. I felt that I was in the right place. That was the main thing. I was in the right place, and I knew if I kept going back, it would. I'd get some help from going to their meetings.
And it's never to be underestimated. It is like a revelation, isn't it, when you go in, and because because addiction, even with the family members, it's such a shame-based illness. Nobody ever really wants to talk about it. I mean, to be honest, it took me 5 years before I'd even tell myself that I was married to an alcoholic, because it was like the last thing. He could have been a mass murderer. If he just turned around and said, Claire, I've been murdering people, I might have accepted that a little bit more. It was like, for me, the shame and the guilt, and then the guilt, feeling the shame, it was just unimaginable. And to then walk into a room, which is dead brave, the first step of walking into that room, but then to hear other people talking about very similar sort of stories and feelings, because it is more feelings, isn't it, Steve? It's identification on a heart level. And I think if you experience that for the first time, that in itself is a revelation. And it's sort of like, it's such even though they're not giving you a solution and they're not trying to fix you, it's just that, just knowing that you're not on your own, and that you've got people who really, really do understand. They're not judging you. They're not there going, yeah, you should be ashamed. They're going, yeah, I completely get it. And I think that's when the miracle happens, isn't it, really, Steve? That's when you go, oh my gosh, maybe I can come back here.
Yeah, I think you're dead right. I mean, I think, for maybe 5-6 years before Al-Anon, for myself, I was going through a process of trying to make everything perfect all the time, but inside the house, it was absolute chaos. There was so much going on, and but outside the house, to everybody else, well, we were a perfect family. No one knew, like you were saying, Claire, like no one knew that there was stuff going on. Like you hide everything, and when you go out to see people, well, yeah, there's nothing wrong with our lives, but as soon as you go back in your front door, it's an absolute mess. And I think that strong denial of looking at different avenues and stuff to be able to cope with these things, was so strong in me. I felt I could, I was able to conquer anything, and I'll be able to sort every problem out going. But yeah, it's a strange life, because pretending everything's fine and it's nowhere near it. It's like, but now that seems so far away now. That type of stuff. It's like, honest and open is exactly the way forward. If things aren't right, they're not right. So
yeah, I remember for my own recovery, and it's that intellectually, I knew what the problem was. Intellectually, on that level, I understood. If I carry on like this, then it's not going to end well. I'm not stupid. In fact, I don't think I've ever met a stupid addict. I knew deep down that my drinking wasn't normal on an intellectual level, but emotionally, I just could not understand. And it baffled me. I didn't understand. I knew what was going on, but emotionally I couldn't cope with it, and it's lack of control. But having said that, now you've just alluded to a little bit. Your life is presumably so much different. Did that take quite a process, or was that a gradual thing? Or I'm just trying to explain maybe to a person that's listening in who is now thinking about, maybe I should go to Al-Anon. Was it just, can you just tell us the process of things getting better within you, not with the addicts, but within you? Yeah,
with me. Yeah, I mean, the program is all about myself. I felt early on in the program I was going there to get an answer, but then after I've sort of realised that ain't going to come, it was then the program is about me. So I think the nuggets along the way in the fellowship, in the recovery, I think they're really, really small steps all the time, and you don't really realise that you're actually making much progress for quite a while, and then maybe you'll do a share, or you'll be in a meeting and someone will ask you something, and then you'll be able to share back, and when you share back, you'll actually realize how far you come along the road, and you think, oh my God, I've just said that, and oh my God, then that's much better than what it was 6 months ago. But you sometimes you don't realize the changes, because I think with the program, where it's such a loving program and you can take as much time as you want, because these situations, they do need to take time, because we've been hurt, it's been painful, it's been fearful, so I think it just needs to take as long as it needs to take. But there is some big steps. Obviously working the steps is one thing as well. We work the same steps as AA do. So that is for me, that is one of my, where it did start to change a lot in once I started working the steps. My attitude started to change more, and the way I looked at things from working the steps.
Yeah, I think it's very difficult initially. I mean, I know the lengths that you went to, Steve, and I know. I think for me, when I was acting as a professional in recovery myself and running a project, and often the hardest people to help, and I think I might have even said this to you when we met, was the hardest people to help are often the families of the addict, because they really don't understand that there's anything that they can do or should do. And I think what was beautiful about meeting you and your wife was, I mean, it was awful, but it was a moment that you'd been presented with the gift of desperation. It was like, I was the last resort. You were coming to me to talk to me about something that you really didn't want to talk about. And it was almost like you tried every other way. But I also know that the lengths that you went to, and that you were actually willing to follow through. And I'm not going to lie, a lot of people, I speak to hundreds of people on a weekly basis, and I'd say maybe a handful follow through with suggestions that I make. So I really do want to give you and your wife credit where credit's due, because even though it was an awful situation you were in, you wouldn't want your worst enemy to be in that situation, but you were willing, and that was a gift as somebody to work with. What you were willing to do was, it was really heartwarming, and I had a lot of hope and a lot of encouragement, because you were like, right, well, what do I need to do? And it's like, what other things did you do? Because obviously I'd rather you say. I know that you just basically was a sponge, wasn't you? You were like, right, what do I need to do? What do I need to do? I'm willing. Who do I need to go and see? So
get there. Yeah. Steve mentioned the steps. So, and I think it's important that between the two of you, you could explain, for someone who's just listening in, who's at the wit's end with an addict in the family, what are those steps, and is it anything to be scared of, and should they be worried about what these steps are?
Okay, so yeah, there's 12 steps and 12 traditions, and AA, they were formed by AA, and so we run along the same guidelines as AA do. So we run the 12 steps and the 12 traditions in our meetings, and then with meetings, it's suggested that you may get a sponsor and stuff, and then start working the steps, and you go from step 1 to step 12, and it's just it is a bit of a daunting thing, like you were saying, Kev, that you sort of feel first off, well, why do I need to do that? but I think in time, if you're in Al-Anon long enough, or I know some people do it quite quickly, they are very helpful. They're very helpful in unlocking your mind, unlocking the way you think, changing your attitude about stuff, about the alcoholic, and it gives you more self-belief in yourself as well. I think, working the steps, you get to unlock lots and lots of things, really, really deep inside yourself, that maybe you thought would never come out, but they do in the end, and you feel a lot better from doing it.
Yeah, and I think as well it's just they're very simple principles, aren't they, Steve?
Yeah, definitely. And with it as well, you can take as long as you like. It's not you know, the process is because it's a loving process. It's not about you've got to do step 1 in 6 weeks and stuff like that. It's about, it's all about, in Al-Anon, it's about taking your time and working your way through it. And when you're ready to do it, you're ready to do it. And it's not before then that you take on that challenge, because some of it is a challenge, because it's a challenge for yourself, to be able to write down these things about yourself. So it's when you're ready. That's the main thing with the steps.
Would it be fair to say, when you first went through the doors of Al-Anon, would you say, why do I have to do all this? I mean, I'm not the one that's causing all these problems. I'm not the one doing this. I'm not the one doing that. Would that be fair to say you felt a bit like that? And if you did, how long did it take before? And why is it important that you've got to separate yourself from whoever it is that's causing all the problems?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I mean, when you first go to a meeting, although there's a lot of warmth in the room, and there's a identification straight away with what other people may share and stuff like that. Possibly, in different walks of life, you may look at the steps and the traditions and think what you were just saying, Kev, that why do I need to do this, or why are they there? The traditions are more for keeping the community together properly. But yeah, I mean, I never felt in the first probably 18 months that I was ever going to do them steps. I didn't think, but that's because my denial was so strong inside me. I didn't think that I needed to change. I didn't think that I was causing the problem. So, when early on in Al-Anon, I just used to share about my son and the chaos, what was being caused, but I never shared about what chaos I actually caused after he caused. So, once he finished causing his chaos, I probably caused just as much, and I never shared about stuff like that early on. So basically so now really when I'm in an Al-Anon meeting, I share about my own what chaos I'm making, not what my son's making, because that's really got nothing to do with me now. Going back to that, it does take a little bit of time and I don't think it takes time for everybody to get their head around the steps. I think it's just a process of all different walks of life. Some people get it straight away. Some people get on the steps in 3 months, and they're getting on with it. But like me, I was 18 months, and same as what Claire was saying, probably 2 years in before, the penny starts to drop properly into recovery. But I think the main thing is to turn up. As long as you're turning up, then you're actually doing something anyway. That's courage in itself, to turn up to a meeting. That's how I see it.
Yeah, and I think as well, one of the hardest things that I had to learn was a new way of loving, because my old way of loving, which I'd grown up with, really, that's what I'd learned from being a little girl, was, to almost to fix, to care almost claustrophobically for somebody. And I'm not suggesting that was you, Steve. This was my experience, and what going to family support taught me was about how to learn to love, but love in a different way. Like I remember somebody saying to me, what coming to these meetings will teach you is how to let go with love, with your arms wide open. So you still love the person, and people talk about let go with love, and it's almost like I would have been really good at that big elbow letting go, like, right, you're out of my life, letting go. But that's not what I was taught by going to these meetings. It was all about just loving in a different type of way, and learning from those other people how they did it. How did you find that whole process?
Yeah, well, exactly. I think obviously you know a bit more about me. So detaching with love, right? So I used to detach with hate, anger, anything, fear. I would detach. There was no love involved in detachment from, especially from my son's addictions. I had more fights, more situations than, I just don't know how many there were. Because basically I got to a point that I actually hated him. So because of the amount of distress it was causing our family. So so I couldn't detach with love. I just found every other way I could to detach, because it was easier. It's easier to detach in hate, because you don't have to speak to them again, and stuff like that, than detach with love. But being in the program and being 7 years in the program now, I now detach with love, and I love my son to bits. My son lives with me, or us, and we are all happy. Whether he's doing the right thing or not, it's not my life. So so I can detach with love, and we have great conversations, and I wouldn't be able to do any of that without Anlon, without changing my attitude to the way I think about love, and work in the program. So so it's given me, my family back, basically, because 7 years ago my family was splitting up, and it could have got worse as well. It could have got a lot worse. I can remember saying to my wife, it's me or my son. You choose me or you choose my son. That's how ill I was. And how bad is that to say that to my wife, to give her a situation where she's got to choose me or my son. So it's I'm so thankful that none of these things have panned out, basically. My wife is, we're still together. I love her to bits, and my son, you like to say, he's still here. So and he lives with us. So how much, it's just a lovely program to be in, where you're able to do these things.
Yeah, I think it's important that we talk about the benefits. We've been through the process of going into Al-Anon and trying to understand, and you have to work on yourself and not the addict. But for the again, for someone who's listening to this, who's thinking, I've got to do something, what are the rewards? What are the, after a certain amount of time going to Al-Anon, what are the rewards? How has that everything changed now with your relationship with your son, your wife? How many other people did you actually going to Al-Anon affect? And paint a picture for me of what your life is like now.
Yeah, so I think where I'm at now, 7 years down the line in Al-Anon, my life's completely different. The rewards are massive, like I just said. That we're able to have our son live with us in our house, and we get on really well. And all the relationships around my family, with my daughter, with my wife, they're all really, really solid and good. And I've got 2 lovely grandchildren now as well, and one from my son, one from my daughter, which is really lovely. So I get to spend lots of time. Al-Anon has taught me or showed me to slow down a bit, and appreciate the things around me, With my business and that, I'm always sort of flying around everywhere trying to sort everything out. And it's over the last 3 to 4 years, I've been able to slow down, not loads, but enough to appreciate my wife better, and my son and my daughter, my grandchildren, my mum. Go and see my mum lots more now than what I used to, and be able to tell all these people that I love them. And I couldn't do that before Al-Anon. I wasn't that type of person who would go around telling people that I love them. But Al-Anon gives you that. It gives you that tool to be able to just to say in a sentence, that you love them, and it's lovely. It's it's so heartwarming that you can actually say things like that to people. Where my denial and fear and everything was so strong in me that I was never going to say that to anybody before. So it's about being honest, open, and loving, basically. And so Al-Anon's given me loads and loads.
And before we finish, Steve, if you were gonna give a message of hope to people that are watching this, either now or they might watch it on repeat later on, what would be the message, the one message that you would leave people with that might be experiencing a struggle with somebody with addiction?
There is so much out there for everybody with these groups and if you stick at it, it will help you. And that's what that's what the groups are for, is to help you. And what I've learned, that you can't change people's paths, and that's what I was always trying to do. I was trying to change the path, but it's not my path to change, but I can change my path. I can change what I do. I can change the way I see things. I can change my attitude. I can change everything about myself. So, and that gives me hope, because if I'm a better person, that better person spreads around me. So, around my work, around my house, it just spreads a better feeling everywhere. So, so there is a lot of hope. And if someone's worried about getting to a meeting, the helplines are there. Al-Anon.org is there. There's lots of online meetings at the moment. I know they're a little bit, it's a little bit of a strange thing, but hopefully soon we'll be able to get back to real meetings and meet up with everyone again. But yeah, definitely, there's a lot of hope, and I think everyone, if with the right attitude, can change their life completely.
Yeah, and I think that's a beautiful way to end, is with the message of hope. And yes, absolutely. I get a lot of calls on a daily basis, people worried that they can't get support, but thankfully all of the anonymous groups have done such a remarkable job of getting online, that actually you've got more of an opportunity of getting the help and support that you need at this time during this pandemic than you've ever had before. And that you can actually, I don't know how many meetings there are in Brighton, maybe for Al-Anon, maybe 3 or 4 normally.
Yeah.
Is it in Brighton?
Yeah, there's one a day in Brighton. So yeah.
Okay.
But online there's 3 or 4, but I think there's one a day when they're open. Yeah.
Well, that's a great thing now. So people, they're not set to rigid just particular days. They can actually get online and they could actually go to a meeting in Manchester if they wanted, if they needed some support at that time. So I think it's lovely. And thank you so much, Steve. Not just thank you for coming on the show, but thank you for all you do. I know the lengths that you go to help others who are still suffering. It's a great privilege to know you. And just thank you for being you. And please Yeah, I love you to bits, and please give your family my love too. I love them to bits too, which is beautiful. And that's what recovery does, isn't it? It connects you at a heart level to people, to kindred spirits.
It exactly does, yeah.
And can I just say thanks very much? Very important message, because I'm sure there's, especially at the moment, there's people out there who are at the wit's end with someone in their family or a close friend, or even someone they're working with, and there may be an employer who might be watching this. And there is a way. What we are doing during this pandemic is we are peddling hope for everybody out there who may be really struggling. And as Claire said, there's never a better time to change your life, and because there's meetings, there's help online all the time. Everything has gone into your laptop to help you, or into your computer. So thanks again, Steve. Absolute pleasure.
Lovely, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Claire.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you soon, Steve.
Bye.
Bye.